Today I'm reacting to your Monday Night Raw Hot Takes. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts regardless of whether they're good or bad about the current state of professional wrestling. So if you want to be featured in a future Hot Takes episode, make sure that you're following me on X. I ask for your hot take on there after every single episode of Raw and SmackDown. And this is another reminder that to celebrate SummerSlam that we've released over on the Patreon 2 free match watch-alongs. We've released the Jeff Hardy versus The Undertaker ladder match watch-along, as well as Brock Lesnar versus The Rock at SummerSlam 2002 watch-along. I'll put the direct links to both of those watch-alongs in the top comment. And these are going to be entirely for free, and if you fall in love with it, if you want to check out more, you can check out the premium Patreon. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know you're going to fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, let's jump into it. Damian Priest should beat Gunther. This would confirm his spot in the main event, as only main event talent can pin Gunther. Wouldn't hurt Gunther if there was interference, and he can just win at Bash at Berlin at the end of the month. So I agree with pretty much everything that you're saying here. If Gunther were to lose to Damian Priest, especially if there's interference, this absolutely would not hurt Gunther's stock in any capacity. However, Damian Priest beating Gunther, whether it's clean or with shenanigans, would absolutely catapult and rise up Damian Priest and make him feel like a legitimate champion and a legitimate main eventer. On top of that, like if Gunther were to lose here, like we can literally just look around the corner and we're basically at Bash at Berlin because it's at the end of the month. And frankly, Gunther winning the championship in Berlin is probably going to get a better crowd reaction than if Gunther were to win the championship in Cleveland. You also mentioned interference, and a lot of people are thinking that, you know, somebody like Finn Balor could potentially get involved. I want to throw out a bit of a curveball here. What about somebody from Gunther's past? What about a Giovanni Vinci coming back from his hiatus, getting involved in this and costing Gunther the victory? Don't forget that Giovanni Vinci never even got a chance to get his pound of flesh back after Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser kicked him out of Imperium. I wouldn't personally hate that. I think it'd be an interesting way for Gunther to lose and an interference that frankly makes sense as well. But yeah, in my predictions, I picked Damian Priest. I think that finally the WWE has figured it out with Damian, and it would be just such a shame for Damian to finally figure it out and click with the fans and to have people finally want to see Damian Priest World Championship matches and to have people actually want to see him succeed and win, only for that to just be yanked out from under us and immediately lose once we finally get to this point where we like Damian Priest as a champion. It would suck. Why does the women's tag division look so good on paper but always seems like it's struggling to put together an interesting storyline? I love the idea of Sonya, Zoe, and Shayna, but all of these group matches have me playing on my phone. I do get where you're coming from, and I think part of the problem is that there's very little stability in the women's tag team division. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people that come and go. We can look at, for example, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, who were the champions, but we know that the women's tag division is never their end game. We know that at some point they're going to be on their way out of the women's tag team division. We can look at Damage Control. We see Io Sky currently getting involved in this, but I know that there's bigger things in store for somebody like Io Sky. She's also just passing by the women's tag team division. And yet the WWE likes to put the focus on these passerbyers as opposed to giving the focus on the women that are actually tag teams, like the Party Girls KC2, like, for example, Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae. For example, Unholy Union would be another example. Obviously, they're the champions, but they still don't feel like the focal point of the division. And because you have a lot of passerbyers, it's really difficult to want to get invested in the storyline when you know at any moment, as early as the week after, that they could be just out of the division doing something else entirely. I was hoping that we get a Wyatt SICKS match at SummerSlam. Kind of disappointed it's not. Having their in-ring debut on a random episode of Raw feels underwhelming. I also wanted the Wyatt SICKS to be debuting at SummerSlam, partly selfishly because I'm going to be at SummerSlam, but also the Wyatt Wyatt legacy has strong ties to SummerSlam. Bray Wyatt's first match on the main roster was at SummerSlam against Kane in an Inferno match, and also The Fiend debuted at SummerSlam in 2019, so it's just kind of perfect. However, I do want to correct you. You said that this is a random episode of Raw. It technically isn't. This is in Baltimore. It's the same arena that Bray Wyatt actually made his first appearance on the main roster in the WWE, I think all the way back in 2013. So there is some significance to that arena, but I still feel like it should be at SummerSlam. They've been building up this group and this feud with Chad Gable for over 2 months at this point. Don't forget that they debuted right after Clash at the Castle at the end of May. So that's all of July and all of June that they've had to build the Wyatt Six and the feud against the Creeds and Chad Gable, to the point where I feel like they built a good enough feud to blow off at SummerSlam. So I am confused as to why it's not happening at SummerSlam. I feel like the stars align for it to be at SummerSlam, but the powers that be don't see it that way, and I frankly don't get it. This man needs to be champ, and I will keep screaming it off the rooftop until I perish. I'm gonna say something that's just a little bit harsh. Right now, we are at the low point of Finn Balor's career in the WWE. I don't think that he's been lower on the totem pole. Hell, he's like one of the lower members of the Judgment Day right now, and that is criminal. That should not be happening. He should have been a multi-time world champion by now. Frankly, he should have been world champion at last year's SummerSlam, but they didn't want to pull the trigger then. I really think that Finn Balor needs an injection of adrenaline in his soul. That is not a Cody Rhodes reference, but he needs something to completely swerve him into a completely different direction. Maybe that's aligning with Liv Morgan. Honestly, at this point, I'll take anything just to give Finn Balor more of a focal point in major storylines, as opposed to just being a henchman to be fodder and to be a red shirt for Damian Priest. 3-hour pre-show for SummerSlam with 0 matches while having both the tag titles matches on SmackDown is a crime. Yes, 100% a 3-hour pre-show. That's ridiculous. By the way, that is as much time allocated for the pre-show as it is for the actual main show, because the main show is scheduled from 7 to 10. I'm sure it'll go beyond 10, but you see how that's problematic, whether the pre-show is almost as long as the actual main show itself. That's ridiculous. I don't know what they could potentially even think could fill 3 hours of an entertaining pre-show. They could do some interviews here and there that will be interesting, sure, but is it just going to be hype packages? Is it all going to be commercials? They could have absolutely had some matches on this show. They could have definitely had both the tag titles that you mentioned. I think DIY and the Bloodline in the pre-show would have been great. I think the Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair versus the Unholy Union in the pre-show would have been great. I don't know what they're going to plan on filling these 3 hours with, but frankly, right now, there's nothing worth watching in this pre-show. What did the PS5 do to Liv? It reminded her of the pain and agony that Dominic Mysterio, that handsome devil, caused her. But yeah, the PS5 did nothing wrong. Come on, like, I really hope that Carlito at least got to upload his save file to the cloud, because it would be a shame to have to restart, you know, your WWE 2K24 career mode. That would suck. Wyatt Six versus Creeds and Gable should have 1000% been on SummerSlam. It had a good story, and if they wanted, they could have put it on the pre-show. So I wouldn't have wanted this on the pre-show. I would have wanted this on the actual main show. You mentioned here that they had a good story, and you are 1000% right. I already kind of talked about this, but this is a story that has spanned over 2 months, and every single week of Monday Night Raw, it is one of the highlights of the show. What's gonna happen with Bo Dallas and Chad Gable, the Creeds, and the Wyatt Six? That's what people want to see. It's one of those pillars of why Monday Night Raw has been so much better than SmackDown over that 2-month period. The Wyatt Six are a great contribution to why Raw has been so damn good. The storyline alone absolutely makes this a SummerSlam worthy match. To not have it on here, to me, is ludicrous. Not the rapper, just crazy.
He does. Why would you wear
Whoa!
fake? Oh, look at that.
See? Okay.
Time. Oh.
That was cool. Through. Get the pin, Cena.
Go.
Oh my God.
Oh God. than Roman's.
Folks, that was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool SummerSlam Match Club, which is available exclusively over on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we're looking at Ricochet versus AJ Styles, SummerSlam 2019. The 2016 WWE Championship match between Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler. The SummerSlam Classic at SummerSlam 2016 between John Cena and AJ Styles. A street fight between Dominic Mysterio and Seth Rollins at SummerSlam 2020. And the iconic SummerSlam 2022 main event between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. You're gonna get those 5 watch-alongs alongside the Raw review, the SmackDown review, and the podcast 3 days early. That's 8 pieces of extra content, all available on patreon.com/SantiZap. I'll put the link at the top of the description or in the pinned comment, but I'm confident that if you even give it 1 month that you're gonna fall in love with it. Now back to the video. I really want the Final Testament versus the New Day feud to work. I really do. I like every single person in the program, but damn, it puts me to sleep. Yeah, man, this feud has been rough. It's, to me, one of my least favorite parts of pretty much every episode of Monday Night Raw. I will say, when they gave Karrion Kross the mic before the match and he just cut that scathing promo on Xavier Woods and the line about Kofi Kingston, I was like, man, that's what I want to see. That is the Karrion Kross that I want to see unleashed on the main roster, because it feels like we've just been getting this nerfed lame version of him, but he finally got a chance to cook on the mic and he absolutely delivered. It almost felt like he asked for permission from Xavier Woods or for somebody in the back. Hey, can you please give me a chance to cut a promo before the match? I've got something to say that I think will help this feud. And it absolutely did, but it's just a little bit too late. I'm with you. I want to care, but I, as it stands, just don't and can't. The women's tag titles will be added to the SummerSlam pre-show. Bianca's gear competition, and seeing as the pre-show is 3 hours long, justifies it. I don't think so, but I do think it's important to note that Bianca Belair did have this competition for her in-ring gear for SummerSlam, so I think in some capacity we might see Bianca Belair. I don't know how. Maybe it's just a backstage segment where she wears her ring gear, but that would suck. I think the problem is that they just should have put this on the SummerSlam pre-show or on the main card, like just right off the get-go, but that was never the intention, and now it would just be weird to retroactively backtrack to try and make this work just for the sake of this giveaway or the sake of this contest. I don't think that the contest is a good enough reason to have a match on a PLE, but Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are big enough names to justify putting on the PLE, so I'm kind of conflicted here. The Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk segment wasn't good. Also, the decision to not allow any of them to fight beforehand is slowing down the steam for the match. I actually disagree with you. I personally like the segment. If you didn't, I think that's fine. I think what I didn't like about this segment was the whole purpose of the segment didn't really deliver. They said that, hey, we're going to talk about the referee's rules. And what the hell were the rules? Oh, okay, you know what? If I count to 10, or maybe I'll count to 20. Maybe I'll count the pin. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll call a disqualification. Maybe I just don't call a disqualification. It's like, oh, okay, so there's rules, but there's no rules. I don't get it. I feel like the purpose for the segment sucked, but CM Punk and Drew McIntyre and the interactions with Seth Rollins, when we got past all the dumb things regarding the rules, I thought was awesome. Raw and SmackDown have been equally as good. People are just jumping on the bandwagon of hatred. I easily sit entertained by both shows and they both fly by. I mean, like, if you enjoy watching paint dry, who am I to tell you otherwise? Bron Breakker shouldn't have had a match at Money in the Bank since he's getting a rematch Saturday. Yeah, the more and more that I think about it, I feel like that Money in the Bank match maybe should have been a triple threat. Maybe that should have been Bron Breakker, Ilya Dragunov versus Sami Zayn, because it is a match that a lot of people wanted. People wanted to see that triple threat. I feel like you could have done it at Money in the Bank. You probably would have given Ilya the pin, which I wouldn't have liked, but it is on brand with what they've been doing with Ilya Dragunov lately. But then it would have made more sense to then jump from that triple threat to a SummerSlam one-on-one match. But now it just sort of feels like, hey, we just want to try this again with Bron Breakker with very little reason or justification as to how we got here, aside from just Sami Zayn being like, okay, sure, I'll give you another chance. But what I want is to make sure that at SummerSlam we get the advertised Bron Breakker. We get the badass Bron Breakker, not this guy that loses to one haluva kick to Sami Zayn, all right? Either he wins or he loses because he gets disqualified because he was murdering Sami Zayn. That's what I want to see from Bron Breakker at SummerSlam. Switching the channel for 2 weeks is not cool. My DVR decided not to record tonight's Raw, so I can only watch it via Twitter. That is definitely a big American issue right now. I had a lot of people in my live stream being like, I can't find Raw. They would go to the USA Network and then they're probably showing like fencing in the Olympics or something. But yeah, it sucks that the Olympics is completely just drowning WWE and putting them on second tier channels like Sci-Fi. I'm shocked at the prospect that pre-taped Olympics at 8 p.m. at night and 9 and 10 p.m. would do better viewership than Monday Night Raw. Obviously, I have no backing and no numbers. I have no clue what would do better. I just have a hard time picturing how Monday Night Raw would get outdone by Olympic footage of stuff that happened like 5 hours earlier because of the time difference in France. Damage Control should turn babyface. They hinted at it with them attacking Shayna, Zoe, and Sonya, but nothing too big. It would be really refreshing to see. So I'm going to change this up for you. I don't think that they should turn babyface. I feel like they should be this like in between morality, good and bad, where really they are just either good or bad based on who their opponent is. And I feel like that's a new type of character that Triple H's booking has started to explore a little bit more. Look at Rhea Ripley, for example. She's in a faction that's heel, but because her motivations are against Liv Morgan, another heel, she's by de facto the babyface in this scenario. Damian Priest is another example. Because his opponent is Gunther, we can change the narrative and what we present on screen to make Damian be more the babyface in this scenario. I think you could do that with Damage Control where, okay, if you're targeting the traditional faces, you just lean into the heeldom. If you're targeting the heels, then we just slightly shift you to be a bit more babyface without changing your character a heck of a whole lot. I think Jimmy Uso will return and reunite with Jay, and then they will win the tag championships from the Judgment Day. I originally thought that this was going to happen, but I'm now leaning towards this happening, but between Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. We're seeing those two start to bring the band back together. They're doing their handshake. They're saving each other on Monday Night Raw from the Judgment Day. I feel like that's where it's going to eventually go. I'm sure Jimmy Uso will eventually enter the picture, but I think if we're talking tag champions, they're already feuding with the Judgment Day because the Judgment Day targeted both of them. I think it's going to be Jay and Sammy. Once the Gable versus Otis feud is over, Otis and Alpha Academy will be just fine in catering. It's a sad fact, but I don't see anyone feuding with them. I feel like the WWE might have missed the boat on a major opportunity to turn Otis into a huge babyface. Dude, that guy was getting massive uproars of cheers and pops whenever he would like potentially turn. Oh, this fly just keeps fucking bugging the shit out of me. I'm sure you've seen it fly around here. I've been trying to kill it for the past hour, but it's too damn fast. Where was I? They missed the opportunity to really pull the trigger on Otis because anytime that he would oppose Chad Gable or push Chad Gable away and defend Alpha Academy, the crowd wanted to erupt so bad, and I feel like they missed their opportunity to really explore that and actually pay that off where it could have been paid off at Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. But now, honestly, it's too late to truly make that into the blood feud that it should have honestly become. So, I'm not necessarily with you that they're going to go into catering, but I also am having a hard time seeing where the future of Otis and Alpha Academy goes to without the Chad Gable storyline. Bronson Reed deserves at least a run with the Intercontinental belt at some point. He's shown he is a great asset on Raw. I do want to point out that your username is Meaty Men Advocate, so you might be a little bit biased. I don't know that Bronson Reed will win any championships in the WWE because I do feel like they are shoehorning him into a particular role, which is the Ivar role, which is to go out there, have a great big old meaty match with the same guy or the same set of guys for the next 7 weeks. All right, then we will take a break from you guys for a bit, and then 5 weeks later, we'll do the exact same thing again for another 7 weeks. That's what they were doing with Ivar, and it seems to me like that's what they've been doing with Bronson Reed. But you're right, he's a very dependable guy. Every single time that he's out there, his matches are undeniably good and entertaining, and they're very unique in terms of the style of wrestling that he can provide compared to some of the other guys that are over on Monday Night Raw. I really like Bronson Reed. I just don't know that or how we get to the point where Bronson Reed is holding championship gold at this point. All right, folks, thanks so much for submitting in your hot takes. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, goodbye. Take care. See ya. Okay, get out of here.